This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
They are the families of the missing in America, and they're desperately searching for answers.
Somebody knows something.
I'm Josh Mankiewicz. Join me for Season 3 of Missing in America. Listen carefully, because just one small detail might allow you to solve a mystery.
We've seen miracles happen.
Dateline Missing in America. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime,
Citizen Detective, and
Campus Killings.
all of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to support Missing Persons and get VIP access to things like ad-free listening, early preview episodes, and bonus content of not only this show, but for every other podcast on the AbJack network of indie podcasts, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcast. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together, we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us. So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Bethany Leanne Markowski was born on February 1st, 1990 in Tennessee to parents Larry and Jonnie Joe Markowski. Larry was married when the couple met, but soon left his wife and married Jonnie. The family lived in Gleason, Tennessee. 11 years later, Bethany's parents separated and then divorced. The situation was contentious, and Jonnie moved herself and her daughter to her sister Lori's home in Nashville. She obtained a restraining order against Larry when he showed up at Bethany's school and tried to take her. But Larry was awarded visitation rights to see his daughter every other weekend, with phone calls during specific times on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Jonnie didn't want to see Larry as she was afraid of him, so they agreed when the visitation weekend started that she would send Bethany in the company of her sister Lori to drop Bethany off for her weekend stays with her father. They decided to hand Bethany back and forth in the town of Waverly, off of Interstate 40, sort of a halfway point between their respective towns. They successfully did this once in mid-February 2001. Larry had had Bethany for the weekend and all had gone smoothly. Then the time rolled around for Larry's second weekend visitation with his daughter. On March 2nd, 2001, Lori dropped Bethany off with Larry. As far as Jonnie knew, Larry was taking Bethany home to Gleason. Around 9:30 on Sunday morning, March 4th, 11-year-old Bethany called her mom from Larry's home phone in Gleason. The caller ID showed that's where the call came from. They confirmed the 5 o'clock pickup of Bethany at the drop-off spot in Waverly. That was the last time Jonnie spoke to her daughter. Bethany spoke to her sister Jenny on the phone while at Larry's house around noon that day. After that, no one knows what happened to Bethany. At 5 p.m., Larry was supposed to return to Waverly to meet Lori to hand Bethany back over to her mom. She had school the next day. But Larry and Bethany never showed up to the rendezvous point. Lori tried to call Larry a number of times before finally getting him on the phone. Larry's story was this. He and Bethany had spent Saturday the 3rd in Little Rock, Arkansas, with a friend of Larry's named Harold. Harold had been with Larry in the incident at the school. They had driven back to Tennessee very late Saturday night. On Sunday the 4th, when it was time to head to Waverly for the 5 o'clock drop-off, sometime between 2:30 and 3 p.m., Larry and Bethany stopped at the Old Hickory Mall in Jackson, Tennessee. Larry later told Crime Watch Daily that they stopped at the mall between 1:30 and 2. According to Larry, Bethany wanted to go to Claire's and the arcade with her friend Hillary. Larry waited in the truck while the preteen walked toward the mall, which she had been to many times in the past. Larry said he then fell asleep and woke up as much as an hour later to find Bethany had not returned. Larry told the police he went into the mall and looked everywhere for Bethany. He checked all her favorite retail stores and snack places, but she wasn't anywhere to be seen. Hillary and her mother saw Larry at the mall, saying he was looking for Bethany. Finally, Larry reported Bethany missing to mall security at 5:15 p.m., and they called the Jackson police at 6. Police arrived and scoured the mall for the missing girl. Once Bethany's family heard that Bethany was missing at the mall, they all rushed to Jackson to help search for her. But after reviewing video footage from the mall and stores inside, they determined that Bethany was never seen on video inside the mall at all. If she had run away or been abducted, those things happened outside the mall. She never went inside. As reported by NBC, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation agent Kathy Ferguson, who worked for the Jackson police at the time Bethany disappeared, told Dateline she remembers searching the mall for Bethany. Quote, "Me and other investigators personally went to the mall and looked and collected every single surveillance video from any store that had them," Agent Ferguson said. Jonnie, her sister and brother-in-law each headed to the mall that night to join Larry in the search for Bethany. Jonnie said she hoped, quote, "Maybe she's just hiding. Maybe they got into an argument. Maybe she's just scared." But Bethany was nowhere to be found. Agent Ferguson told Crime Watch Daily that they were never able to corroborate Larry's story of Bethany being in the mall. Jonnie and her sister plastered the area around the mall with missing persons flyers showing Bethany's photo. Here is an excerpt from an open letter Jonnie wrote to Bethany on the 20th anniversary of her disappearance in 2021 on the missingkids.org blog page. Quote, "When I received the call saying that you had gone into the mall in Jackson, Tennessee, and then no one could find you, I went into panic mode, calling everyone I could think of that might know something. The 3-hour drive to Jackson seemed to take forever, but I just knew that when I got there you would be found and everything would be okay. That was not the case, and that is when the true nightmares started. I remember your Aunt Lori, your Uncle Larry, Diane Wyatt, Megan's mom, and myself sitting in the police station, and they brought me your overnight bag. The first thing I pulled out was your coat. It was so cold and misting rain that night, and you were out there without your coat. I fell apart. Your Aunt Lori and I stayed in Jackson for a week. We posted flyers all over the town. I was scared to leave, scared to death to leave. Just in case you were found, I had to be there. It was hard to leave, even after we found out that you had never been at the mall. You were not on any of the surveillance tapes from any of the stores." The TBI was called into the missing child case. Eventually, the FBI got involved as well, listing Bethany on their missing persons webpage. A month after the disappearance, in April 2001, a school official from a grade school in eastern Tennessee called the police and reported a possible sighting. A young girl who looked like Bethany was in the company of a blonde, white woman who brought a girl looking like Bethany into a private school in Sweetwater, Tennessee. The unidentified woman said she was an aunt and tried to enroll this girl as a student in the school, but as she didn't have the requisite papers, enrollment was not granted. This woman said the girl's father, the custodial parent, would come back with the paperwork, but the group never returned to the school. This girl was reported because she looked like Bethany, but whether it was her has never been verified. The woman was described as being between 42 and 44 years old, around 5'4" tall and 185 pounds. She had blonde hair and brown eyes and looked somewhat unkempt with dark circles under her eyes and her clothes looking dirty and unwashed. Her shoes were torn and incorrectly tied. In late April 2001, the Jackson Sun reported, quote, "One of those tips came from East Tennessee in the weeks after Bethany disappeared. A woman and a girl about Bethany's age appeared at the same restaurant 3 days in a row in Cleveland, Tennessee. A waitress tipped the local authorities off about the possibility of it being Bethany because the girl looked like her. After the third day, the pair went to the local bus station and got a ticket for Moline, Illinois. Officers didn't get to the bus station in time and hoped to get the pair when the bus got to Moline, but they never made it there. Law enforcement has never confirmed that the pair in the Cleveland restaurant and at the Sweetwater School were the same, or that any of these people were Bethany, period. Bethany's mom, Jonnie, has never given up hope that Bethany is out there somewhere, and she was instrumental in the creation of Tennessee's Missing Children's Day, March 4th, the anniversary of Bethany's disappearance. Per CBS, in 2017, she helped State Representative Darren Jernigan get a measure passed making March 4th Tennessee Missing Children's Day. She also volunteers at NCMEC. According to People, Kathy Ferguson, the special agent with the TBI, says of Bethany's father he is, quote, "not a named suspect, but he's not been very cooperative, and he has not participated in the investigation at all, period." Speaking of Larry Markowski, in 2018, WBBJ 7 Eyewitness News interviewed him. He had spoken with a news station in 2001 when he said, quote, "I made a mistake by letting her go into the mall. I shouldn't have done that." In his 2018 interview, he said, "I picked her up on Friday. We went to Arkansas, and the whole time we was there, we visited and everything else. Then we went to my house in Gleason. Well, she wanted to go to the mall in Jackson to go to Claire's and the game room. So we go to the mall at 1:30 or 2 o'clock. So I stretched out in the back seat of the van. It was not about 30 minutes later I went in, and I couldn't find her. I went in the mall. I looked everywhere. I believe somebody has her, and she's going to come home, just like J.C. Dugart. I don't care how they smear me. All I care about is my daughter. I love my daughter with all my heart." Larry gave an interview to Crime Watch Daily and said that police have told him that he is a person of interest, but he believes it was Jonnie who took off with Bethany. He calls the accusations against him a witch hunt and a pack of lies. He says he believes that Bethany is still alive and denies having any involvement in her disappearance. At the time Bethany Markowski vanished, she was 11 years old. Bethany was between 4'8" and 5 feet tall, between 95 to 100 pounds, and she had brown hair and blue eyes. On the day she vanished, Bethany was wearing a green t-shirt, blue or black jeans, and black slip-on shoes. Today, she would be 33 years old. An age-progressed image showing what Bethany might look like at age 29 was released by NCMEC in 2019. Mike Morford sat down with Bethany's mother, Jonnie Carter, to talk about her missing daughter's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace, too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Look, there's feelings, and then there's the facts. If you're feeling like your finance team is bogged down in mundane manual tasks, the fact is, you need Ramp. Ramp is the corporate card that makes the expense process fast and easy. The moment your team makes a purchase, Ramp handles everything. Receipt collection and approvals, the works. With Ramp, you can cut your month-end close from 5 days to 1, customize approval workflows, and get complete control over every transaction. Facts. Over 25,000 businesses trust Ramp, including Shopify and the Boys and Girls Club of America, which is why they were just named #1 in spend management by G2. Facts. Start using Ramp and you'll have more time to spend scaling your business. And that'll feel really good. Upgrade to Ramp for free today and get $250 at ramp.com. That's ramp.com. ramp.com.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're running a retail business, don't let disorganized order fulfillment cause chaos. Use ShipStation instead. From running a business out of your garage to multiple warehouses, ShipStation is ideal for every phase of your growth. Save time with one login for all your stores and by automating tasks. Plus, you'll get the best shipping rates from global carriers. Calm the chaos with the shipping software that delivers. Start a free trial at shipstation.com/audio. That's shipstation.com/audio.
Hi, Jonnie. Thanks for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your daughter Bethany's case with us.
Hey, Mike. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you inviting me.
Well, I'm happy to have you on here. I know you've been searching for your daughter for over 23 years now, and you haven't given up.
No.
We're going to discuss a lot of the twists and turns in this case over the years. There's been some, I'm sure, from what I've read. Before we do that, though, can you tell us a little bit about your daughter, Bethany, and what she was like, and share a little bit about who she is?
Yeah. Bethany, she's just a fun kid. Always had a smile on her face, very compassionate and loving. She's one of the kids that would, stand up to bullies and hated for people to cry or get their feelings hurt. She was kind of shy sometimes, like she loved to sing, but anytime that she was going to sing, she would make you turn your head and she would just belt it out in a brush, a hairbrush. Just a really good kid. She was a typical 11-year-old. She still had, the attitude problem and, things like that. But a really good kid, really good kid.
I want to start off going back to her childhood. I think part of the story is, as she was younger, her relationship, your relationship with her father, Larry, some things happened within the family. Can you talk about a little bit about the family dynamic a little bit during Bethany's childhood?
Yeah, I had 2 children from a previous marriage, and Larry had 2 children from a previous marriage, and then Bethany was ours together. Was closer to his family because my family didn't live close. They all moved to Missouri. So I really didn't have a whole lot of support or, or help with anything. But mostly, yeah, we were around his family. I'm still in contact with both of his children and the grandbabies, their children. And just recently got reconnected with Larry's sister, Lori. She came to our last event we had.
And how long were you together with him in total?
Around 12 and a half years.
Okay. And what was the relationship like between Bethany and Larry?
It's funny. I was just discussing that with my sister today. Bethany loved Larry. She was, Larry's her dad. She loved him. But you can also be scared of somebody that you love. And I think that was the relationship. When it was good, it was really, really good. And when it was bad, it was very bad.
Yeah, and I think, as kids, a lot of times, whatever imperfections their parents have, they're always, they're they love their parents, and that even in the good times, bad times, and even if there's issues, they'll sometimes defend them. I know for you, from what I've seen, that you reported that Larry became abusive towards you. Can you talk a little bit about that abuse, what kind of abuse it was, and did any of that spill over to Bethany or any of your other kids?
Yeah, absolutely. It started off kind of like screaming and hollering, and then a shove, and then, choking, and then it just progressed to, just pure beatings, pulling out hair, breaking a nose, and just different things like that. And it did. He was violent with his wife before me. And he was violent with his two older children. And I remember one day, I can't remember whether it was Jenny or Daniel asked me, what are you going to do when Dad starts hitting Bethany? Because he will. And he did. And that was when I just, that was the end. I couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't going to let her live through something like that. It was bad enough her growing up seeing what was going on. And I never wanted her or my other two children or Larry's other two children to think that this is normal. I didn't want the girls growing up thinking that it's okay for a man, to beat the daylights out of you, or to, just make you feel like you're nothing and that you're not worth anything. And I didn't want the boys to grow up thinking that it was okay to treat a woman this way.
So you made the decision to get out of that situation because you thought it would be better for you, better for the kids to get out of that situation. You fled the home and left Larry feeling like you needed to get away. I'm curious, can you tell listeners the story of where you went and who knew where you went? Because I think, as we're going to get into, he sort of finds you, and I'd like to hear you just run through that scenario.
Yeah, I was, things were getting worse and worse at home. His other two children, they weren't living there anymore. So it was just me and him and Bethany. So again, things just started getting worse. And I remember thinking, the last time that he hit me, he was mad. I don't remember why. I might have said, I might have gave him a weird look, but I remember him telling Bethany to go outside. And she started crying because she knew what that meant. And he, closed the shades on the windows, and he had a hammer in his hand because we were still working on the house in Gleason, and I was sitting on the steps going upstairs, and he just kind of leaned me back and was in my face screaming and hollering at me. And he had the hammer and he was hitting it on the step right beside my head. And for the first time, I didn't cry. And I thought, this is it. This is the time. He's going to kill me this time. That's just it. I was working at a grocery store in Greenfield, Tennessee, and I was assistant manager. And he would come up there, and they would buzz me and tell me he's in the store, he's doing this, he's looking for you. And my mom had moved to. My mom was living with my sister, and they had just moved to Nashville, Tennessee from Boston. And I was talking to my mom, and I was only doing it at work. And she had bought me a prepaid calling card. That way I could leave it at work and call her. And I was telling her all the things that were going on, and that I just, I don't know what to do. I don't have anywhere to go. I've been looking at homeless shelters or shelters for abused women and children. And there was, just incredible to say this, there was a waiting list, like a 3-month waiting list to get in there. And the ones I did find that could take me, they couldn't take Bethany, or vice versa. And then the one that I did find was really close to where I lived. So I needed, to try to get out of there. And one of the employees at the grocery store had given me the name of a local lawyer, and James Bradbury. He was a lawyer, and he was also a judge. Well, I called, just talked to his secretary, Darlene, just to try to find out, what can I do? Where can I go? legally, what can I do? You know, I knew I wasn't supposed to take Bethany out of state legally. And she offered, you know, hey, me and my husband will come and pick you and Bethany up, and y'all can stay with us until we figure this out. But it ended up, my mom had talked to my sister Lori, and they decided, yeah, let's bring her here. And that was a scary decision, because I knew what was going to follow us, and it wasn't going to be nice at all. And I didn't want to put my family, you know, in harm's way. But we decided to go. And it was a really crazy, insane situation. If I got to drive the car to work, then Bethany couldn't go to school. So there was no way, he left no avenue for me to get to Bethany. But it, you know, and I was praying and asking God, you know, you got to help us get out of this. One of us is going to die, and it's probably going to be me. And I remember one day we had a storm, and it blew the doors open in the grocery store. And I went to shut one of the doors, and in the corner, I saw something all crumbled up, and it was a $10 bill, all crumbled up. So I was like, thank you, Jesus. And I put it in my pocket. And so that was gas money, you know, if I was ever going to be able to drive and Bethany be at school at the same time. But it did work out by the grace of God, because Larry was restoring a vehicle, and we lived in Gleason, and he had to go to Martin, which was like 20 miles or 20 minutes away, and finish it. And he had got up the next morning, and he let Bethany go to school. And then he told me, you're going to have to drive to work. I almost passed out. Bethany's at school, and I get the car. So literally hardly had any time at all to throw this together. My sister and her husband had already tried once or twice to come to get us, but I had to call them back and say, hey, don't come, because, you know, Bethany's at school, or Bethany's not at school, she's with him. But it all worked out. And he left, and he kept calling me as soon as he got there. Well, I called where he was going, and I said, let me know when Larry gets there. And the woman said, you know, you're going to leave him. And she was crying and scared. But as soon as he got there, he got the phone, and he called me. And during this time, and it had rained like the day before, and it was muddy, I was looking around the house trying to figure out what to take. And I would grab like one thing and run it out to the car. You know, I had these mud boots on. Anyway, I made several trips. And every time I came back, the phone was ringing. And I was like breathing real heavy, because it was kind of a bit of a ways to the end of the driveway where the car was. And he was like, what are you doing? I was making up excuses. Well, I just went out to feed the dog, or I just went out to feed the horses, or, you know, this and that. And finally I just couldn't think of anything else to take. I took a laundry basket of clothes for Bethany and myself. And I grabbed my Bible, and I grabbed her caboodle, a little makeup carrier, and it's just stupid stuff. And I went up to the school and parked in the back of the school, and I ran through the school. They were changing classes, and I was like, I need Bethany right now. I need her right now. She was in one of those trailers that they have classes in, and she came out, and she saw me, and she just had the biggest smile on her face, and she just hollered, are we leaving, Daddy? I said, yeah. And I tell you, I don't know what I would have done without her, because I was so scared that I didn't even remember how to get to Jackson, Tennessee. She had to tell me. She had to kind of guide me. And she was looking at all the stuff in the back seat. You know, why did you bring these pants? They're ugly. I don't like these, you know how 11-year-old does. Or she was only 10 at the time. And I remember her saying, do you think now that I'm not going to be around Daddy that my fingernails will grow? Because she bit her fingernails when she was nervous. But it was a crazy, crazy time. But we got away.
It's a very frightening situation to get out of, and you know, that history of abuse, and then it going from you, and then Bethany experiences it too. So you get away basically with the clothes on their back and what you could carry in a basket, it sounds like. And then you get set up, and did you wind up going to a place like a shelter where they could take both of you?
No, actually, because we knew before we even really got out of Nashville real good, my mother called. She was at my sister's house. Before we got out of Jackson, Tennessee, sorry. we were on the road and my mom called and said, hey, he called. He wants to know where Jonnie's at. He already knew I was gone because I wasn't answering the phone at home. And so what happened was the company that my brother-in-law was president of at the time had a corporate apartment that nobody was staying in. So Bethany and I went and stayed there for just a little bit. And it was really, I don't know, the whole time it was crazy because he was in town and he was looking for us. So anytime that they needed to bring us food or anything like that, they would have to go all kinds of different directions, out of the way and kind of backtrack to the apartment. And then the owner of Permobile was coming into town and needed the apartment. So then we moved over to a friend of my sister, Diane White. We went over to their house, and that's where I enrolled Bethany in school. Because legally, I'd been talking to my lawyer, and legally I only had five school days before I would be in trouble, right? And I was making sure that every single thing that I did it above board because I didn't want anything to go wrong. So we, my sister and I took Bethany to the school. Then of course they're just not going to let you walk in and leave your kid. But I told the woman the situation, and they wanted Bethany's school records. And I asked her, could you just please wait, please, because I haven't served divorce papers on him. And as soon as I do, he's going to know exactly where I am. They ended up letting Bethany stay there that day. And so from the time that we dropped Bethany off, and it was probably less than an hour, the school called and said, hey, you need to get up here right now. He's here. And we have no legal right to keep her from him. So they, what they did was they said that she was changing classes, and they had one of the teachers and Bethany go into a classroom and wait until I could get up there. And when we got up there, I saw Harold Roberts, the guy that he was with, and walk out of the school, and Larry walked out of the school. And then they kind of walked towards the back of the school, which I thought they were leaving. So the assistant principal was on the phone with my sister, and she said, come in here now, hurry, hurry, hurry. So we went in, and actually what was happening was he went in the back door of the school, and he found Bethany in the classroom with the teacher. And Bethany started crying, and the teacher was like, no, you can't take her. And he shoved the teacher, and he was like dragging Bethany down the hall, hollering, you're going to show me where your mom's at. And it caused so much commotion that a couple of teachers opened the doors, and just so happened one of the teachers, a female teacher, opened the door right as Bethany was being drugged past, and she grabbed her leg around Bethany's waist and broke the connection. And one of the male school teachers grabbed Larry by the throat and pushed him against the wall. And then they took him to the principal's office, and Larry said he was only wanting to give Bethany money for her birthday, and police didn't get called. Nothing happened, right? Bethany did go in there and see Larry. I did not go. He still doesn't to this day, does not believe I was even at the school. He did see my sister and my brother-in-law because Bethany didn't want to go into the room without him. And he said, no, they couldn't be in there.
So it's a sort of a catch-22 situation because he has parental rights. He's her father. He's not some stranger that's showing up trying to take her out of school. So their hands are tied sort of, but at the same time, he's pushing teachers and dragging her down the hallway. Mm-hmm. It seems like a situation where police should be called. At the very least, if he's pushing teachers and dragging a student, whether it's his daughter or not. But somehow no police involvement there. And it's only the latest thing in a troubling, path of stuff that's happened. How did he find you, by the way? How did he know to go right to that school?
It was process of elimination. He knew where my sister lived because we found out that he had been laying in a neighbor's yard watching the house, waiting to see me and Bethany, which we weren't there. We did go. We moved. We finally just like he knows where we are, so we just went to move in with my sister and her husband and kids and my mom. But it was a process of elimination. He'd already been to the other schools, and yeah.
Wow, that's pretty frightening that he's laying there in your yard stalking, looking for any sign of you too.
Yeah, I did while all of this commotion was happening, and they kind of the teacher or the principal moved me, my sister, and my brother-in-law and Bethany to like a storage closet at the school while they talked to Larry. And while all of this was going on, and then Bethany went to go see him. Well, before that, I apologize. I called my lawyer, and so he was actually, like I said, a lawyer and a judge, and he was in court. So the secretary ran over and got him and stopped the court and got him to sign a restraining order for me. And so, and I think it was emergency custody or something like that. Anyway, and they faxed it over to the school. So right then, with Larry sitting there, they got all of that information.
Well, so when he sees this piece of paper that they fax over, does he then let up and say, okay, I'll leave? And
I wasn't in there. All I know is that he wanted to visit with Bethany. I think he gave her a little bit of money for her birthday, and then he left, and then we left.
This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Look, there's feelings, and then there's the facts. If you're feeling like your finance team is bogged down in mundane manual tasks, the fact is, you need Ramp. Ramp is the corporate card that makes the expense process fast and easy. The moment your team makes a purchase, Ramp handles everything. Receipt collection and approvals, the works. With Ramp, you can cut your month-end close from 5 days to 1, customize approval workflows, and get complete control over every transaction. Facts. Over 25,000 businesses trust Ramp, including Shopify and the Boys and Girls Club of America, which is why they were just named #1 in spend management by G2. Facts. Start using Ramp and you'll have more time to spend scaling your business. And that'll feel really good. Upgrade to Ramp for free today and get $250 at ramp.com. That's ramp.com. RAMP.com.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Life can be chaotic. If you're running a retail business, don't let disorganized order fulfillment add to the chaos. Use ShipStation instead. With ShipStation, you never have to worry about shipping and fulfillment again. Whether you're running a business out of your garage or you have multiple warehouses, ShipStation is ideal for every phase of your business's growth. Save time with one login for all your stores and by automating repetitive tasks. Plus, you'll save money with the best shipping rates from global carriers. ShipStation's industry-leading features help you deliver a better customer experience. They'll get accurate and faster shipments along with automated tracking updates with your branding. And with up to 88% off UPS and USPS rates and up to 90% off FedEx rates, ShipStation is the fastest and most affordable way to ship. Calm the chaos. Switch to ShipStation today. Start a free trial at shipstation.com/audio. That's shipstation.com/audio.
So now the court's involved. They've got this restraining order against him, basically, or protection order. But still, despite the history of abuse and him causing the scene in the school, he was granted visitation. Is that correct? Supervised.
Yeah.
visitation.
Mhm.
And so Bethany's already had this frightened feeling about her dad. How did she feel about these unsupervised visitations? Did she come around to being open to them, or was she terrified every time she went there to see him?
She only had 2. She disappeared on the second one. So not only did he have unsupervised visitation every other weekend, he got we had to allow him to talk to her for 1 hour. I think it was at 7 o'clock at night, 6 or 7 on Tuesday and Thursday. So he got to call and talk to her twice a week. That didn't turn out very well. We would have to go find her, and she didn't want to talk to him. And so my sister ended up listening on the extension. And I remember one of the calls, I was sitting outside of the bedroom on a sofa, and she come running out crying. And, anyway, my sister, he was hollering and screaming at her on the phone. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to kill me? What are you trying to do to me, Bethany? And, that was not good, but my sister told him to calm down and he could call back later. The first visitation, though, she seemed kind of excited because she knew she was going to get to see her sister Jenny and, some of her friends and things like that. But the second visitation, she was not excited. She didn't want to go. She kept asking all of us, what are you going to do if Daddy don't bring me home? What if Dad don't bring me home this time? Since I had a restraining order, the meeting place was at Waverly. It was halfway between Nashville and where he was living. So my sister and my brother-in-law would take her. Well, my sister and a friend of hers took her the second time, and it just wasn't a good feeling for any of us, and it all stemmed from the way Bethany was feeling. Before she went to school, it was Thursday night, and she was going to go to school Friday. My sister and her friend Diane were going to pick her up after school and take her to Waverly. So the last time I saw her was Friday morning on her way to school. But that Thursday night, I was trying to get her to pack some clothes to take. And we were in this big walk-in closet, and she was sitting on the floor crying, I don't want to go. What if Daddy don't bring me home? And I was like, Bethany, he has to. It is the law. He has to bring you home. If he doesn't bring you home, we're going to come and get you. And if I don't let you go, then I'm in trouble and you'll have to go anyway. And that was it. Never saw her again. I did talk to her the day she disappeared, but I never got to see her again.
So this first week, you said it was 2 times, basically 2 weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So the first weekend, did that one go off pretty much as planned?
Yeah.
She went there, spent time with him, came home, no problems.
Mm-hmm.
The second visit is where stuff goes wrong. So this is March 2nd. It's a Friday. You drop Bethany off for the visit with the idea that you're going to pick her up again 2 days later on Sunday the 4th. Mm-hmm. Was there anything different and I don't know if you had any interaction at all with Larry. Did you talk to him when you would drop her off?
No, I didn't drop her off. I had a restraining order. My sister and her friend Diane dropped her off, and Bethany wasn't feeling good that day. And so my sister Lori got out, and she actually talked to Larry and said, hey, Bethany's not feeling good and blah, 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 this stuff. But yeah, now from what Bethany told me, she said, Dad said that he's going to pick me up, and then we're going to go to Gleason and pick up my friend Christina, and then he's going to take us to Jackson to the skating rink. So that's what I assumed was going to happen. But he picked her up and he drove her to Little Rock, Arkansas.
So a little bit of a change of plans from what you thought was going to happen. Sunday rolls around and you get a call from Bethany, and from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the caller ID indicated that she was at Larry's when she called. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was 9:38 Sunday morning, and the phone rang, and on the caller ID, it said, the Gleason phone number, that the house that we had lived in, and she was there. And I answered the phone, and she you could tell she was upset by the way her voice was kind of shaken, and I could hear him pacing back and forth, maybe like it was on speakerphone so he could hear what was going on. And he was hollering and saying, tell her I know that she has a boyfriend. And Bethany said, Dad knows you have a boyfriend. I said, what are you talking about, Bethany? And she said, Dad, because he called and I talked to him or something like that. And I was like, whatever. Okay. And then she said, I will see you at 5 o'clock, right? And I said, you will. She said, I love you. I said, I love you too.
So, and again, it wasn't you picking her up at 5 o'clock. I assume it was your sister again that was going to pick her up. And
my sister and my brother-in-law.
Okay, so they go there to pick her up. She's not there. And is your family like, are they starting to panic right away, calling you saying, hey, he's not here with Bethany? What happened then?
She called the house and she said, hey, Jonnie, she said, I just want to let you know that Larry's not here and he's not answering his phone. She said, but don't panic because he could be stuck in traffic. Anything we're going to sit here a little bit longer. So as soon as she called, you just know. So, and then, we spoke a few more times and she said, you know what? He's not answering his phone. We're going to give him another minute. So anyway, she did call me back eventually and say, hey, he did answer his phone. He said that he was charging it and that he let Bethany go into the mall and he can't find her. And that's when I lost it. And I started calling everybody I could think of. First person I called was my lawyer's secretary, Darlene. And just so happened, she was in Jackson eating dinner right around the corner from the mall. So my brother and sister-in-law headed to Jackson and Darlene ran over to the mall and was talking to Larry. And Larry told her that he let Bethany go into the mall with her little friend, Hillary. And then when it's the same story, that he pretty much told everybody. I let her go into the mall with her little friend Hillary. I think they went to Claire's to look at earrings. But she was never seen at the mall. Hillary was, and I called Hillary and talked to Hillary's mother. They did see Larry in the mall. And Hillary said, we had lived in Jackson for about a year, and that's why Bethany knew Hillary. Hillary said that Larry was walking through the mall. He had jet black hair and had on sunglasses. And she ran up to him and said, where's Bethany? And he said, I don't know. I can't find her. I'm looking for her. So Hillary and her mom both helped, search for a little while. And then the mall closed. Well, he did get a security guard to help him.
Okay, so that part of his story does check out then, that he was actually at the mall that day, inside the mall, and seeking help, looking for her. So that part of the story does check out. It's not just a case of him sitting in the mall parking lot saying she went in and never going in. There's people that verify that he was in there looking for her.
He did go in there looking for her, yeah.
Okay. Because I think in some of the coverage that I've seen, at least, that seems to have been missed.
No, it might. I don't know, but they do know that he went in to look for her. He let her go in and he took a nap, and then he went in to look for her. She was not shown on. There wasn't a whole lot of video cameras back then, but he was on the video camera, him and the security guard. But Bethany was never on any of the surveillance cameras coming in, going out of the mall, or in any of the stores in the mall.
Okay, so he's definitely in the store. There's no sign of her ever being in the mall, but he's in there. So
he's making a case.
Okay, so he says that she went in, no record of her going in, but there's a record of him going in. Okay, so this is pretty obviously he's either telling the truth or he's lying and making a cover story of, I dropped her off, she went in, and I went in after her, but there's no record of her.
He even made a comment that he bought her clothes at JCPenney's, right? There in the mall. And when the police pulled the JCPenney bag out of his van, there was clothes in a JCPenney's bag. But the receipt was from the JCPenney in Little Rock, Arkansas.
So part of the story is not complete or accurate because he's saying that he's at that mall buying her stuff at JCPenney, when in reality it was a totally different mall.
In a different state. Yeah.
So, how did the police come and become involved? Because I know you got a call too along the way from police
Mhm.
that was frightening. What did the police say when they called you?
Once my sister and them got there, a police officer did call me or did get on the phone and say, hey, listen, when you come up here, don't start anything. We're trying to, get all of this under control. Larry's mom and sister came up there. It was just, it was crazy. It was a cold, misty, rainy night. And yeah, it was just crazy. Once after I got there, I didn't have a car, so I had to get a ride from Nashville to Memphis, Memphis Jackson. So it took a while for me to get there. But after I got there and we spoke for a little while, we all went to the police station and they separated us and they put him in one room, and then me, my sister, my brother-in-law, and a friend Diane were in the break room, and they would come and check on us and everything. And one of the officers came in and he said, I've had to go in there and wake him up 3 times to ask him questions.
So when you say wake him up 3 times, was he just a flat? Was he drunk or just super tired? Or
I don't think he was drunk, but the police said we've had to wake him up 3 times to ask him questions. And then they brought me her overnight bag that I'd packed for me to see what was missing, because he had said she had on a green t-shirt, blue jeans, and black shoes. And again, this is March the 4th, and it was cold and raining and drizzling rain. And the first thing I pulled out was her jacket, her coat. So that just, it just broke me down, knowing that she was out there somewhere being cold. And but one of the things that my sister and my brother-in-law thought, they kept thinking it, and so did I. They kept thinking something happened, she's scared, and as soon as she sees us, then she'll come out of hiding and we'll just take her home. And I thought the same thing, if she sees me out walking around in the mall parking lot, then she's going to know she's safe and she can come out of wherever she's hiding from him, or whatever the situation is. But she never came out.
This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
Life can be chaotic. If you're running a retail business, don't let disorganized order fulfillment add to the chaos. Use ShipStation instead. With ShipStation, you never have to worry about shipping and fulfillment again. Whether you're running a business out of your garage or you have multiple warehouses, ShipStation is ideal for every phase of your business's growth. Save time with one login for all your stores and by automating repetitive tasks. Plus, you'll save money with the best shipping rates from global carriers. ShipStation's industry-leading features help you deliver a better customer experience. They'll get accurate and faster shipments along with automated tracking updates with your branding. And with up to 88% off UPS and USPS rates and up to 90% off FedEx rates, ShipStation is the fastest and most affordable way to ship. Calm the chaos. Switch to ShipStation today. Start a free trial at shipstation.com/audio. That's shipstation.com/audio.
So nobody saw Bethany that day at the mall.
No.
When is the last time somebody is confirmed to have seen her safe?
actually laid eyes on her would be Little Rock, Arkansas on Saturday. But actually speaking to her would be me. Well, I take that back. It wouldn't be me. It would be her sister. Her sister Jennie called her, I think it was 12:10 or something like that, the day she disappeared. And she just wanted to talk to her because she didn't get to see her and over the weekend like it was planned. But Jennie said that she was talking to Bethany, and Larry in the background was saying, "Tell Sissy I'm taking you to the mall. Tell Sissy I'm taking you to the mall." So Bethany said, "Dad's taking me to the mall." And then right after that is when he turned his phone off and didn't turn it back on until after Bethany was reported missing.
So, that's interesting. He's got a cell phone that he turns off and doesn't
Mhm.
turn back on until later. So obviously him being the last person that saw her or claims to have seen her go into the mall, and there's no proof to back that she went in there, police would want to question him, and as they would most people, or if something happens to a family member, they talk to the family first and rule them out. Was he cooperative? Did he answer questions? Did he what was the story with him and his cooperation level?
From what I understand, I mean, they could ask him any question. He just didn't know. All he knows is he let her go in the mall. She disappeared, and maybe he shouldn't have done that. But yeah, he stopped cooperating pretty quick. I mean, he knew. They told him, "You are a person of interest," and he knew he was under investigation, as was I. We both were. He had made a comment that I knew she was going to the mall, so I sent somebody there to kidnap her, which didn't make sense because I was getting her back that day anyway.
Yeah, and I mean it's normal police procedure to start with the parents and then
Right.
work out from there and clear them and say, okay, let's look at everybody else in our circle. So the fact that you would be questioned or be polygraphed or anything like that is normal. As with Larry, it would be the same thing. Now, from what I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it true that both of you took polygraphs and that you passed yours and he failed his?
That's true. We took, from what I understand, we took the same polygraph with the same questions. I was told he failed his miserably. He only got two answers truthful. He only said two things truthful in his name and who he was married to. I took a polygraph of, from what I understand, it was the same ones, right? From what I understand, we took the same one. And when it came to the question, is that they asked, "Have you lied or deceived anybody in your family the last 6 months?" I said no, and then I started crying. And then they unhooked me. We went into another room. We had a soft drink, and he said, "Okay, what just happened?" And I said, "I did. I lied. I lied to Bethany. I told her we would come and get her if he didn't bring her home, and it didn't happen." And so, yeah, I was talking about him and I both taking a polygraph. But I took one, and according to what I was told, it was the same exact questions. And the part when they asked me, "Have you lied to or deceived anybody in your household in the last 6 months?" I said no, and then I started crying. And so he unplugged me, and we went to another room, had a soda, and kind of calmed down. And he said, "What happened? What caused that?" And I said, "Because I did. I feel like, I did lie to Bethany or deceive her because, I told her, 'We'll come and get you. If he doesn't bring you home, we're going to come and get you.' And we didn't." And then he said, "Okay, let's go try this again." And he hooked me back up, and he said, "Other than what we just discussed, have you lied to or deceived anybody in your household in the last 6 months?" And I said, "No."
So you're pretty much cleared right away. But Larry, again, he proved to be, you know, to be lying, basically, or on his polygraph. And I think this is the point we should probably point out. He's not been charged in relation to this case. We have to put that out there. But it seems like the police doubted his story. There's no proof to back up she ever went in the mall besides him saying that she did. His polygraph is showing that he's deceptive. I want to back up for a second because I read, and I think this was something you recently posted on Facebook or somebody did, that around the time Bethany disappeared, he destroyed a lot of items in their home, tore apart her room, and outside the house they found a large burn pile of all your possessions, including clothes and family photos. Can you explain a little bit about that and what was the reason for that, if you know?
Yeah, the reason is he hated me. But what happened was when we went to court, we had went to court for visitation. He got unsupervised visitation. After the second visitation, Bethany disappeared, or during the second visitation, the judge that allowed him unsupervised visitation actually recused himself from our case. So he was not going to hear our divorce. So we went to divorce court. Bethany was already missing. I got the house. He had already sold all the land around it. I got the house and the acre it was on. And he lost all parental rights of Bethany. Even if she was found the next day, his parental rights were terminated until they weren't anymore, until we could go to court or something. But after I got the house after court, we stopped to eat dinner on the way back to Nashville, and it was within that day or a couple of days later, I had talked to somebody. They were going to auction the house for me, and they went out there to look at it, and they said when they were pulling in, Larry was pulling out of the house. And when they went to go look at it, it was tore all to pieces. Bethany's room was destroyed. So then me and my sister and a friend went to try to go salvage what we could out of it. And yeah, all of my belongings were in a burn pile with my children's birth certificates and all of their personal, their pictures, school pictures and all of that. And Bethany's room was destroyed. Yeah, it was just, that Bethany's room being destroyed it broke my heart. I cherished every single thing that I have of Bethany's, even if it's a piece of paper with a crayon mark across it. I got everything that I could out of the house that belonged to her. I just couldn't imagine how much anger he had to do that to her room. The rest of the house, fine. My stuff, fine. But not Bethany's stuff.
And this was sort of a reaction to you getting the house, basically? He did this out of anger, you think?
I feel like it was a reaction to everything. He lost. He used to tell me, it's not over until I tell you it's over. And I just feel like he was enraged. He was so mad that, he lost the house, he lost me, he was losing Bethany, or he had already lost Bethany. And that's just who he is.
So I want to ask a little bit about the evidence or lack of evidence or investigation of the evidence. Did they do any searches of the home or his van that he was driving when we went to the mall to find any evidence of blood or any other sign of Bethany in there? And how did those searches go?
Yeah, actually, they did a search of the house. They did a search of the property. He had just recently laid a concrete pad that he said he was going to build a shed on. So there was reports, about that. And they went and they did multiple times. They went to the house and to the land. They did get his van. They put a tracker on it. But when they did get it, it was 9 days later, after Bethany disappeared. when the TBI actually got the case, and it was because the Jackson Police Department wanted them to run some phone numbers, and they said, hey, we have a missing child, so the TBI kind of stepped in. And when they did confiscate his van, from what I was told, it looked like he had cleaned the van up and kind of like shampooed the carpet with bleach water, where it was still kind of damp. But they did take a blanket and a pillowcase or a pillow out of the van that did have drops of blood on it. We already knew Bethany's DNA would be in that van. She was in that van, right? My sister saw her get in the van. So hair and skin and cells and things like that would be in there. But when asked that, is there any reason her blood would be in there? He said, yeah, she sat on a thorn.
As you just mentioned, you would expect her to be in there, her DNA to be in there, but the blood is a little bit more disturbing. And when you say blood, was it like a drop or two, or was it?
Yeah, it was just little tiny
just enough that they could tell there was blood. Okay.
Yeah.
Still, that puts your mind probably going in a lot of bad directions, I'd imagine.
This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Look, there's feelings and then there's the facts. If you're feeling like your finance team is bogged down in mundane manual tasks, the fact is you need Ramp. Ramp is the corporate card that makes the expense process fast and easy. The moment your team makes a purchase, Ramp handles everything. Receipt collection and approvals, the works. With Ramp, you can cut your month-end close from 5 days to 1, customize approval workflows, and get complete control over every transaction. Facts. Over 25,000 businesses trust Ramp, including Shopify and the Boys & Girls Club of America, which is why they were just named #1 in spend management by G2. Facts. Start using Ramp and you'll have more time to spend scaling your business. And that'll feel really good. Upgrade to Ramp for free today and get $250 at ramp.com. That's ramp.com. RAMP.com.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
When a shopper places an order, you have one shot at winning them as a lifelong customer. I'm Al Coe, CEO of ShipStation. I'm obsessed with ShipStation being the most reliable and efficient way you can ship. At ShipStation, our promise is to make shipping easier for e-commerce business owners. We're focused on providing the most integrations with all the places you sell and automating manual tasks to make fulfillment easier for your team. We partner with all the major carriers to make sure you get the lowest possible rates because every dollar counts. So no matter what you're sending or where you're shipping to, ShipStation can get it there fast and keep your customers happy. See for yourself how ShipStation can reduce the time and effort you spend on order fulfillment. Go to ShipStation.com to sign up for your free trial. That's ShipStation.com.
I want to move forward to a strange thing that happens in the case, and this is this mystery woman that tries to enroll Bethany, or who they think is Bethany. How long after she went missing did this happen? Where did it happen at? And how did they confirm whether or not this was really Bethany that this woman was trying to enroll?
Well, there were several different sightings right after Bethany disappeared, and this one was within a couple of months, and it seemed like all of them were towards East Tennessee. going towards East Tennessee. After Bethany disappeared and Larry sold everything and I got the house, he actually moved to East Tennessee. So it was kind of all in that direction. And the one about the school, I don't know if they ever could confirm it was, but the girl wasn't there. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. The girl was there. But I don't know if they could ever confirm that it was her or not, but somebody took a woman took a girl to like a Catholic school and tried to enroll her. And they said, well, they needed the school records. And the woman said her dad has them and he can bring her back. And they were never seen there again.
Was she using Bethany's name?
I don't know if she even used a name or not. I didn't get that part of the story, just that they were trying to enroll and the girl looked like Bethany.
Okay, so based on her looks, somebody along the way said this looks like Bethany who's missing, and I'm sure she was in local newspapers on TV and stuff, her story. So somebody maybe just, even if it was a mistaken identity, they put forward this idea that this could be her, but nothing ever came from it, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So if it was her, then could be an interesting clue, but if it's not, then it just might be a case of mistaken identity that sort of takes the case in sort of a red herring. Did you? I think they made a sketch of this woman. Did you recognize?
For a long time I didn't, and we was trying to figure out. So I was doing, we were doing Google searches on different people, trying to find out, who does this look like? She looks familiar. She looks familiar. And she does look familiar, the way she was unkept and everything, with one of Larry Markowski's brother's ex-wives. But they did talk to her, and it wasn't her.
So, eventually Bethany's case goes cold. And I imagine it had to be tough for you to just sort of, have it move to the background. And for you, I'm sure it was never in the background, but without many clues to go on, any solid evidence, any witnesses coming forward, the case is cold. And you didn't really give up hope. I know you kept searching. At some point you became more vocal and maybe put your face out there a little bit more. I know in 2017 you helped Representative Jernigan get a measure passed making March 4th Tennessee Missing Children's Day. You also volunteered for the NCMEC. How important was it for you to be part of these things that help so many kids, not only in just Tennessee, but all over the place?
Well, there came a point in time when Bethany was missing that I did realize that a couple of things. Number one, I cannot do this by myself, just me and my family. That's when I started becoming more vocal and trying to get Bethany's name out there. And I think I was just kind of sitting back and waiting for it to happen. And it just was never going to. And helping other people is, I was approached by calling Nick with the Morgan Nick Foundation and some of the other people there that started Team Hope. And it is part of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I was a volunteer, and I spoke to other parents when their children disappeared. And I didn't know if that was going to be a good fit for me or not, because I'm still looking for my daughter. Now, all of the volunteers have had missing children or still have missing children, or their children have been found, brought home safe, or deceased. So I didn't know if it was going to be a good fit, but talking to parents, because I didn't have anybody to talk to when Bethany first disappeared. So, and you don't know if you're doing things right. You don't know if you're making things better, if you're making things worse, if being quiet and staying out of the media is making things better, if it's making things worse. So me being able to tell other parents, the things and the struggles that I went through in the beginning of Bethany disappearing, and the things that helped me make it through the hardest time of my life, it started helping me. It started building me up and helping me. And I pray that I helped everybody I talked to, but I just couldn't be silent anymore. And then it just became bigger than Bethany. I wasn't just fighting to get Bethany back anymore. She is my top priority. But I'm fighting to get all the kids back. I mean, every single missing child deserves to be found. And we just can't stop.
Yeah, it's frightening how many kids are out there missing. And, the one stat I remember looking at recently was that most kids that are missing aren't missing as a result of a stranger. They're missing as the result of someone close to them, which, from some of the clues we have in this case, could be the case here. So, recently I know you went to CrimeCon. It was right there in Nashville. And this was your first CrimeCon. Tell me a little bit about your overall experience, what you did, what you learned, and what your takeaway was.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. And Angeline Hartman from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children called me and said, "Hey, you want to go? We'll do a live age progression on Bethany." And I said, "Absolutely." I'd never heard of it before. My sister and I went, and it was overwhelming. There were so many people, and there were so many venues and so many different things to see that you just didn't have time. I only was able to go one day, so I didn't have time to take it all in. But I mean, there's so many more avenues, and I guess so many more ways now than when Bethany disappeared to get the story out. So many people like you that are doing podcasts that are helping parents get these stories out, that it's just, it's kind of overwhelming. It's exciting, and it's crazy. It's sad too. It's sad that it has to be something like this.
So they're one of the things they did there was to make a progression. Would that be the right terminology? Age progression of Bethany, and tell us a little bit about that process and how that's going.
Bethany's had multiple age progressions, and each one of them, it's hard, and it gets harder as they get older because, in my mind, all I can see is Bethany at 11 years old. So it's hard to try to grow her up in my mind to make her look like a 34-year-old woman. So they're hard. They're extremely hard. I actually, the finished age progression, it was emailed to me today to review to see if there's anything that I want to change. And to me, I want to change it all. I want to say, no, that's not Bethany. That picture looks too old to be Bethany. So they're hard. They're hard on parents, but they're necessary. We need them.
Yeah. And it's just one tool that they use to help, try and see what somebody might look like if they are out there. And, you mentioned there had been sightings of her, so there might be sightings of a, recent version of her if she's out there as an adult. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think that, to keep hope up, but on the other hand, do you ever think if she's out there, she'd call me, she'd reach out to me? And how tough is that?
It's hard. It's very tough because I do think that a lot. She's not a scared little 11-year-old girl anymore, right? She is 34. She would know how to use a computer. And I just pray that Bethany is out there and she's alive and she's happy and she's married and she has a few grandbabies for me, and that she's living her best life. But the possibilities of that it's not zero, but it's slim.
And how important is it to know either way, even if you find out that that's not the case? Because the not knowing seems to be like, from everybody I talk to, the not knowing part is got to be the toughest part.
It is. It's tough because there's a part of you that I think a part of you after a certain amount of time, you just know. But your mind and your heart and everything in you is not going to let go of that hope. Look at J.C. Dugard. how could I ever explain to Bethany if she was to come home that I gave up on you? I just, I figured you weren't here with us anymore, so I stopped looking. How hard would that be to explain? I'm not going to be the person to have to do that. She's going to know. She's going to know that if it takes me all of my whole entire life until the day I die, I want to know where Bethany is, whether she is walking around on this earth or whether she's not alive anymore. If she's not alive, I want to bring her home.
Yeah. And
there's that.
As tough as all that is, it sounds like you're not going to give up on her and you're going to keep looking for her. And we want to help you spread the word that, she's never been found and help you get the word out to more people the way you've been doing. Are there any social media or websites that people can go to learn more about her case?
Yeah, we have Help Find Bethany Facebook page. We have just started some stuff on TikTok. She is on Instagram, but yeah, just Google Bethany Markowski. We've got so much stuff out about her. My niece took over all of Bethany's Facebook accounts and things like that, and she's running it, and she is doing a fantastic job. Just today, she did a new release. Every once in a while I would show, release a picture of Bethany from when she was little or something. But today Jordan released like 52 pictures that have never been seen before. And some of those pictures of the house, the pictures that I took of the house after he destroyed it. So it's, there's a lot of information out there.
And we'll definitely link to all those things and people can find those and learn more about the case. And of course, we'll put the tip line information in there for contacting the police. As we wrap up, I'm just curious, it seems like a distinct possibility, at least the police think so, that Larry may know more about what happened to Bethany than he's, said. Has anybody, you or anyone else in your family, flat out asked him for the truth or for any more details? And if so, what was his response?
Yeah, we haven't had communication with him in a very, very long time. I think the last time that anybody in the family actually just was very blunt about it to him was years ago, and it was his daughter Jenny. She got really ugly with him, and he cut her off. He was like, I'm done. And she was really only staying in contact with him, trying to find out as much as she could. So he doesn't talk to any of us. We're not talking to him. I'm not opposed to talking to him, but in a very secure and safe environment.
And after all these years, has he been public at all about the case?
He's done 2 interviews. One was the day after she disappeared, and one was when we released a podcast called Searching for Ghosts, Where's Bethany Markowski? Crime Watch Daily interviewed him, interviewed Larry, and they interviewed me. And those are the only 2 things that he's done.
Well, I hope, hopefully if he does have any information, he'll share that after all this time. But, for your sake, I hope you do find out what happened. Don't give up the fight, and we'll help you spread the word. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story and Bethany's story with us. And I wish you all the best trying to find out what happened to her.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure being on here. I love talking about Bethany. Keeps her alive, keeps me going, and I appreciate this so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/missingpersonspod. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can find us and contact us through our website, missingpersonspodcast.com. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
If you're running a retail business, don't let disorganized order fulfillment cause chaos. Use ShipStation instead. From running a business out of your garage to multiple warehouses, ShipStation is ideal for every phase of your growth. Save time with one login for all your stores and by automating tasks. Plus, you'll get the best shipping rates from global carriers. Calm the chaos with the shipping software that delivers. Start a free trial at shipstation.com/audio. That's shipstation.com/audio.